Inventing the AIDS virus. Inventing the AIDS virus. Written by Peter Duesberg. P-E-T-E-R. Duesberg. D-U-E-S-B-E-R-G. He's professor of virology in the Berkeley University. And this book has a foreword by a Nobel laureate who was the father of PCR test. What's his name? PCR test. What was the name? Kary Mullis. And Kary writes, Peter and I don't know what causes AIDS, but there's no cause for AIDS. But Peter and I know one thing for certain, which nobody can dispute because he is the best virologist in the world, having got the Genius of the Century award. And I am the father of the PCR test which identifies viruses. Nobody can dispute. And Peter and I do not think HIV virus has anything to do with AIDS. Full stop. Unquote. But you and I believe. See, this is what we are. You and I are made to believe in wrong things for the sake of what is called? Wall Street greed. Wall Street greed. But my happiness is I love that man Creek. Because I have been saying that modern medicine has oversold itself. And it is coming near its end. It's almost at its end. And that's why the West, there is a craze for alternate medicines. Would you know the budget of Europe's last year's alternate medicine? $70 billion. Is it music to the ears of Ayurveda people? $70 billion. There's so much a movement of Ayurveda today. 4 months ago, I was in Germany for an Ayurvedic conference of Europe. Again, in June, they have invited me to London for another meeting. See, there's a thick movement. Universities are interested. People are interested in Ayurveda because they have almost seen the horizon of Western medicine, non-scientific medicine, using linear mathematics as the base. And linear mathematics cannot be the base of modern science of human beings because human being is non-linear. Universe is non-linear. And quantum physics now says non-locality. Things happen elsewhere. Supposing I am thinking about my friend in London now, some photons of mine will be acting on that man and you wouldn't believe it happens, You seriously think. Yesterday I finished my thing. I reached my room at 7:55. I just opened my door, my phone rings. And this man says, you must have finished your meeting. You must have come back. I just wanted to say hello to you. Can you believe that? Honest to God. He's about 85-year-old man called Linus. He's such a nice man. He's my friend. And he has to call me wherever I am in the world twice a day. And he knows to call me when I am in my room. That's the interesting part of it. He exactly knows. This is called non-locality. And non-locality was condemned by Einstein. He said, can't happen. Everything must happen here in my laboratory. Locality. Non-locality. What do you mean? Is God playing dice with the world? Einstein asked. Today he should be ashamed. Because today even we know what's called transportation, teleportation. You can convey an idea at a distance without any telephone wire, without any, cell phone and things like that. Experiments showed that you can evoke a potential in a brain of a yogi or a mystic. You can electrically evoke a potential and tell the yogi, transmit this potential to all your sishyas. And would you believe the potential gets transferred to the brains of all his sishyas? There's a yogi, professor of physics in Stanford University called William Teller. William Teller can convey his idea to any matter. He will keep a glass of water here and say, he'll concentrate on that and say, let this water have pH of 4.5, pH of 4.5, pH of 4.5. After some time you take that water, pH of 4.5. You drink it, it's water, but the pH is 4.5. You know the pH of this water? RO, reverse osmosis water, slightly acidic. Be careful when you drink it. So if you want to drink it, put little lime in it and drink it so that it becomes alkaline. So you don't know what's happening in this world. You and I are taken for a ride. So friends, with all this background knowledge, now let me tell you, lifestyle change is the only future for your health. Your health is in your hands. It's not in anyone's hands. It's not in doctor's hands, medicine's hands. No. You don't know when once you get a disease, what will happen to you. The greatest neurosurgeon, one of the best neurosurgeons in America, an Indian boy, youngster, very interesting boy. He gets cancer at a young age, lung cancer. Boy who married an American girl, they were planning to have a child, and he gets a little cough and loses weight, and then writes a book. Bookkude per endu mane? Good girl. Mole nalla mola. Parai. When breath becomes air. You must read that book. You will cry. You will cry. He's the best boy. Best neurosurgeon. And he is supposed to be the best, and 5 universities wanted him as professor. But he chooses his own university, Stanford, and joins there. His wife is an internist, and they join. And then they choose the best cancer specialist in America. Because they're, Western says, just Google it, and they get the best cancer specialist. And this girl says, don't worry, your cancer has 3 treatments. 1, a tablet a day, 20 years life. If it fails, chemotherapy, 5 years of life. If it fails, radiation, surgery, another 5 years of life. So you have another 25 years of life, you can plan your family. Husband and wife plan for a child. And she becomes pregnant. Tablet fails, chemotherapy fails, to cut the long story short, he dies. But before dying, he writes this book. This boy has done masters in English literature before going to the medical school in Yale, and he is a fantastic English, I tell you. This is a book worth its weight in gold. When breath becomes air. What a beautiful thing. When breath becomes air is a poem written by Walt Whitman. And the same poem's title he takes for the book. And if you read that book, you know, this relying on doctors, medicines, and things like that is like relying on the devil. You rely on yourself. You say, let me not get cancer. If I get cancer, God only can help. I mean, if money can do and treatment, Jayalalitha would have died. Would she have died? She shouldn't have died. Because she can command anything in the world. But then, it has limitations. That is why don't get into a situation where you go into that what is called the mortuary, pre-mortuary, that is intensive care unit. Ultimate destination is the mortuary, but before that you go through the intensive care unit so that you drain yourself of all your savings and your other things. So, lifestyle. What a beautiful saying. Very simple, very simple. Eat half of what you want to eat. Supposing you want to eat 4 idlis, stop at 2 idlis. You will live probably another 20 years longer. Studies showed rats fed full stomach lived half the time of rats just fed half stomach. Can you believe that? So stop when you think you can eat equal amount. And eat in moderation and don't have any restrictions. Who told you must have a breakfast in the morning, a lunch in the afternoon and evening? Nothing. Whenever you feel hungry, you eat something. When you don't feel hungry, don't eat nothing. So eating in the olden days, one pediatrician killed a lot of children in America. He said, time feed a child. 2 o'clock, breastfeeding. 3 o'clock, something else. 4 o'clock, something else. Then when a lot of children died, he said, I'm sorry. Child knows when it wants food. It cries. Feed it. Don't overload it. There are even now Western aping Indian mothers who feed by the clock. Don't do that. You also don't do that. But one good advice which I gave yesterday is good. Don't eat after the sundown. These Jains, the Jiten and all, they don't eat after sundown. They call it as palahara. That means they eat everything other than rice. That's Alona. That's what happens. But anyway, we had a lot of good ideas. Don't eat. Number 2, help as many people as you can. Each time you help somebody, that fellow will not be grateful to you. Forget it. He'll be ungrateful to you. But you are benefiting yourself. Because your body is built in such a way that paropakarartham idam shariram. You are here for others. And so try to do good to everybody. But the minute you do some good to somebody, follow Jesus. Let not the right hand know what the left hand does. Forget. And if you forget, you're happy. If you don't forget, and if you say, okay, I help B.M. Hegde, and when B.M. Hegde harms you, you feel terribly bad. And there was Ashutosh Mukherjee was a great teacher in Bengal. He was told one day, but he was an old man, somebody said, see, so-and-so was bad-mouthing you so badly. Then he smiled. Here, I am telling you the truth, why are you smiling? He smiled and said, no, I am only thinking, when did I help him? Because if you don't help somebody, they won't bad-mouth you. So you forget, but help you must. You must go out of your way to help sometime. Because it helps you. Because he is you. Remember that? You and I are just leptoquarks. He is a leptoquark. And the same leptoquark exchanges between you and him. And the same consciousness and same mind, and his mind and your mind are connected. So if you help someone else or someone else helps you, he or she gets the benefit out of it.